Rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. La ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I greet you, my brothers and sisters, with the noble and universal greeting of peace, the greeting that has been used by the prophets and the messengers of our universal creator, Almighty Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukr to Allah, we have the opportunity, being midway through the month of Ramadan, to congregate in this way and to remember Him and to remember our purpose. We are alive and there's a purpose for our being alive. And we are continuing with our discussion around the spiritual discipline or the spiritual practice of fasting, Som. In Arabic it's called Som. And so the Quran tells us that in the month of Ramadan, all those who are healthy and are not in any undue stress or duress, they are to fast. It's prescribed for the people before the Prophet and for the people of the Prophet. We are the people of the Prophet, that we may fast to gain or attain taqwa. The purpose of fasting, of Som, especially in the month of Ramadan, a sacred month, because it is the month in which the Quran revelation began, the month of Ramadan. On the auspicious night, Laylatul Qadr, in the month of Ramadan, the night of power, the night of destiny, the night that things changed on the planet, when Jibreel alayhi salam conveyed the first verses, to the Prophet, that read, recite, or repeat in the name of your Lord who created. So, in the month of Ramadan, the Quran was given to the Prophet. The Prophet became a revelator, a messenger with a revelation, and it is in this month especially that we are to fast. And I've been saying that we got to read this particular injunction to fast in a context, in a wider context, that human beings have been astray and lost before the guidance of the Quran came through. Human beings, for a long while, before that it was the Prophet Isa, or Jesus, who conveyed to his people the Injil, that we are aware of, the Gospel or the Bible. The Bible is a Greek word meaning book. The Injil, these were revelations given to people, guidance. But the Quran was a guidance to humanity, not just to one particular group of people, to humanity. So this was something really remarkable, that the Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who himself didn't know how to read and write, and he conveyed this message, the revelation, to the people. And it is a revelation of guidance to humanity, guiding humanity to explain, to understand. It is the Furqan. It's telling people, look, this is what has happened in the past, this is the truth about the past, things went astray, this is the correction, and so on and so forth. It's pointing, to people what happened before and what has been on the planet. And it then guides humanity collectively to the submission before our one universal creator. It guides people to become aware of our creator, the nature of our creator, and to establish a relationship with our creator, to be conscious of our creator. So the Quran says those who fail to remember Allah, Allah fails to remember them. You get what I mean? If you don't remember Allah, Allah won't remember you. The Quran says if you remember Allah, then yours won't be a depressed life. If you fail to remember Allah, yours will be a depressed life. So humanity, in a state of ignorance, unawareness, unconsciousness, could have continued without guidance, and who knows where that would have taken us. The advances made in the world based on the Arab education that came from the Islamic influence, this has changed the world. So we don't realize it, that just from the revelation of the Quran, its delivery, and the influence on these barbaric Arabs, the transformation it had upon them, and they became world leaders in education and knowledge and sciences of all different kinds, ethics and so on and so forth. Because the Quran guided them to ethics, as well. And the Prophet demonstrated ethics. But these things were not there previously in Arabia because they were barbarians. I'm not judging, I'm just saying that's the term given to them, such individuals. When Alexander the Great was conquering the known world at that particular time, and he was coming all the way through, and when he came to Arabia, he said to his armies, let's bypass these people, because these are different kind of people. They cannot be controlled and governed. They are, savages in a certain sense. They are primitive, not right human beings. So even Alexander the Great Killer bypassed Arabia. He wanted to have nothing to do with them. So I'm just saying that this book, the Quran, the revelation and the guidance, had a major impact on the Arabs and then the world, as we know it. And its guidance was to guide human beings to faith, iman, and amal. You see, where human beings hadn't previously in that particular way been guided to faith and conduct, to a relationship with their Creator, to remember God. Those who remember God, God remembers them. Those who fail to remember God will live a depressed life. You know what I mean? And this ties in with Adam and Eve having had their encounter with Satan and going down that road, literally. They were in a state of insecurity, and that's when, Satan sort of did his thing, leading human beings astray. And when the Prophet Adam became aware and he asked for repentance, Allah says, there you and your people will remain until guidance. When he repented, when he realized, I'm sorry, what we did, and then Allah says, there you and your people will remain until guidance comes to you. And when guidance comes to you, no longer will be insecure. See, when guidance comes to you, you won't be insecure. So I was reading chapter 41 of the Quran recently, and there's an interesting verse, and it said that to the people of faith to believe, there is this caring message. I don't have the exact verse on me now, and a message of do not fear, do not grieve. It's a message of encouragement, and it's a message of that you will have what you want in this world and in the hereafter. Maybe next week I will quote the exact verse, but this is the message, that when guidance comes to you and you receive the guidance around becoming aware of your Creator and having a relationship with your Creator, and the guidance of how to be in the world and conduct yourself in the world, then you no longer will be insecure. Until then you are insecure. Until then you are lost. See, and all of us have been and could actually be still lost if guidance hasn't come to us, or guidance came to us and we didn't receive it. We'd still be insecure. You get what I mean? I told you, you don't have to teach people to feel unworthy, and treat each other as unworthy. You don't have to teach people to self-disrespect and to disrespect others. You don't have to teach people to rob themselves and rob others, to be destructive in their own life and destructive in the lives of others. You don't have to teach people to be in darkness, fear, depression, anxiety, aggression, all kinds of emotional and behavioral obstacles. You don't have to teach people to be lazy. You don't have to teach people to not apply themselves in life constructively and progressively. You don't have to teach. Human beings are good at that. Why is it? Because they are in a fallen state until guidance comes to them. And when guidance comes to you about your Creator, and you establish a relationship with your Creator first, because there's nothing else but God. You get what I mean? Beyond who and what you've established your relationship with previously. When guidance comes to you, then you can become aware of and experience Allah consciousness. And when you experience Allah consciousness, that's where the Quran says about the friends of Allah and the believers and so on. They don't grieve. They don't fear. What does that mean? They're not in that state of insecurity. You get what I mean? And they are forgiven and they are transformed and so on and so forth. If you actually have a relationship with your Creator of submission, you will experience being transformed. I can tell you from my own personal experience. And the guidance is also about how to conduct yourself in the world. And again, you don't have to teach people how to overeat. You don't have to teach people how to eat junk food. See, the Quran is guiding people not only to the Creator and the nature of the Creator, and to have a relationship where one can experience assurance with God beyond that, insecurity. That we can go from a state of abandonment. Existential abandonment is what I call it. When I look at people, remember, I'm a therapist, and over years, over 3 decades or so, I've been interested in the area of working with people in crisis and difficulty and so on and so forth. And I can tell you that you don't have to teach people to be insecure. They already are. You don't have to teach people to be depressed. You don't have to guide people, this is how you become depressed. Keep up this way and you'll become depressed. We can teach people like this is how you can live peacefully and joyfully and patiently. But you don't have to teach people to be impatient. See, Allah says to us in the Quran that He's with those people that are patient. But you've got to develop patience. The Quran guides us to apply ourselves to develop a perfect patience. You get what I mean? But people are generally impatient until guidance comes to them. Get what I mean? So, if people are generally impatient until guidance comes to them, it means what? Allah is not with them until they join Allah consciousness, until you remember Allah. You get what I mean? So what it means is, most people, when they live their lives without the guidance of Tawheed, what actually is Tawheed, and I'm not mentioning Tawheed, I'm talking about the actual awareness and experience of Tawheed. A lot of people mention the word Tawheed and they say God is one, God is one, God is one, that's Tawheed. See, there's one God, there's one God. That's Wahid. Ahad and Wahid is 2 different things. See, so we are interested here in what is the guidance, that when we receive the guidance we'll no longer be insecure. We will no longer feel vulnerable, threatened, and we'd no longer be in this existential abandonment, feeling threatened and alone, like, I don't know. That's what Satan capitalizes on. This is what he says, you're alone, you got nothing, you got nobody, now do this, you'll feel better. Eat food when you're not hungry, or get angry with people. When you feel threatened and vulnerable because you're not aware of your Creator, that's when you are impatient. You get what I mean? When you're not aware of your Creator and His giving nature and His trustworthiness, you'll become very impatient when you're unaware of your Creator. So you don't have to teach people to be impatient. Because of the fallen nature of human beings, Adam and Eve and that saga, and human beings who didn't receive guidance, they are naturally impatient. I was one of them. Or should I say unnaturally impatient. This is the human condition. The human condition after the fall is a very low condition. And the Quran has come, and the Prophet supporting the Quran, exemplifying the message of the Quran, to guide human beings to Allah consciousness and how to live in the world. To go beyond this state of insecurity because we forgot Allah. You get Adam and Eve, they turned away. They went into a arrangement with Satan. Although he repented, but that's what happened. You get what I mean? And so human beings, you don't have to teach us to be insecure. This is our natural state. Until guidance comes to us, Tawheed, a relationship with Allah, until we submit, until we become actually aware of Allah and experience Allah consciousness. Taqwa is supporting us in the strength, spiritual strength of Allah consciousness. Get what I mean? When you are Allah conscious, you have the strength, spiritual strength, it's taqwa. It's a shield, it's a protection. From what? This insecurities in you, the insecurity in fellow human beings, the insecurity that prevails in the land. You get what I mean? Satan's effects on human beings and the effects on you and me. When we have taqwa, then we're not impatient, we're peaceful, and so on and so forth. You get it? In situations. So, the Quran's guidance is guiding humanity to Allah and to actually have a relationship with Allah. I'm not talking about people who think they do. I'm talking about people who really are aware. Verily, in the remembrance of Allah, hearts experience assurance. When you speak about people, remembrance, you say, what is that? Read tasbih. Read tasbih. Just take, move a bead, move a bead, move a bead, count it how many times you said it, you said it, you said it, you said it. You know what I mean? To remember Allah is to be cognizant of Allah. To remember Allah is to actually go beyond the challenge of the human condition. You have to be a person who is claiming refuge with Allah, that I'm choosing to go beyond this insecure self that is on a negative propensity path, that behaves insecurely, that is impatient and angry and hurts itself and hurts others and deprives itself and is depriving to others. You get what I mean? We all are that. Don't think you are not. You all are that. Until guidance comes to you. Then, when you have Allah consciousness, then you don't behave that way anymore. You get what I mean? I can tell you from personal experience. And the message of the Quran is guidance to Allah and experiencing security with Allah, beyond superstition and ignorance, beyond living lost in darkness, out of the darkness into... We're all dark until we guided into the light. Those who received the guidance will move into the light. You get what I mean? This is the Quran. The Quran said to the Prophet, we found you in the dark and we guided you to the light. You get what I mean? We are all in a fallen state, the Prophets included, and they were guided by Allah. Anybody who had a mother and a father, guided by Allah. Get what I mean? To Allah conscious. Ibrahim alayhi salam, same story. Guided by Allah to Allah. From the darkness of his family and his ways, he realized, no, something not right here. You get what I mean? And he became aware of this one power, universal intelligence, and the nature of this intelligence. And he had a relationship of submission. You get what I mean? And so the Quran's other part of it is how to behave in the world. How to behave in the world. And what does that mean? If you are insecure, you live in superstition, you're not aware of the truth of Allah, your purpose, who you are to Allah, what you're doing here, what's your reason for being, you're going to be lost, right? Ignorance, superstition, arrogance, entitlement, disconnection, dismissing, you're not going to be shakuran, you're going to be kafuran, you're going to live with ego, desires, all that. So you're going to be lost, you're going to be unaware and lost in the world. It's over. You get what I mean? Until guidance comes to you, then you got a chance. When guidance comes to you, then you can bring to Allah a purified heart. So there is that bit of it that is becoming aware of, which is the most important thing. And then there's a way of functioning in the world. Like the Quran says, eat, how to consume. Because this is very important. Human beings consume food every day. And that behavior influences our health. And it influences society. You get what I mean? And so the Quran guides us to halal and tayyib, supporting conscious living, how to live in a way that benefits our bodies, how to live in a way that benefits ourselves, how to live in a way that benefits each other, how to live in a way that benefits society. The Quran is giving us this guidance, because without that guidance of how to be in the world, how to be as a person who is outstanding, guided, and is aware and conscious and living in a way that is guiding others. The Quran is guiding. Without that, you will be like everybody else, lost in insecurity and living unconsciously. You get what I mean? Now, many people say they believe in Allah, but they actually have beliefs about Allah. They don't come from their belief in Allah. You see, when you live your life, if you live from your belief in Allah, that's real belief. But if you're believing in Allah, but you don't believe from Allah consciousness, if you don't live from your belief in Allah, living from your belief in Allah is very different from just saying, I believe in Allah. Anybody can say that, just as words. You know what I mean? And the same way, that's Iman, and then Amal is like, how do we conduct ourselves? With our loved ones, how do we talk? The Prophet was understanding, compassionate, kind, generous, healthy. He was optimistic. He was fit and strong. He ate food in a way that was not indulgent or depriving. You know what I mean? He was really a remarkable human being. That is the sunnah of the Prophet. I know many of you think the sunnah of the Prophet is just wear a beard. Because that's how it is. When you worship Satan, he doesn't want you to actually submit to Allah and have Iman in your hearts. Because that's what the Quran says. Don't say you're a believer if Iman has not entered into your hearts. Rather say you're one who is submissive in religion. You know what I mean? So Satan doesn't want you to submit to Allah. You'll have beliefs about Allah, but you won't live from your belief in Allah. You won't live feeling assured, reassured, trusting in Allah, because you don't know Allah. You won't really, truly worship Allah. You'll be doing rituals and all that sort of thing. And the same thing, you'll say that you got Amal. You get what I mean? When guidance hasn't come to you, or if it comes to you and you don't receive it, you'll say you're a believer. And the Quran says, don't say you're a believer. Iman has not yet. Say you submiss. And then you'll say you're following the Sunnah. You get what I mean? In the meantime, you're thinking a beard is what it means to be following the Sunnah, instead of the characteristics. And yes, a beard is part of the characteristics of modesty, etc., of the Prophet. You get what I mean? So, the people won't be into Iman and Amal. When Satan is with them, they'll think, oh, I just got my hat on my head. That is me now, Amal. You know what I mean? In the meantime, Amal is how you conduct yourself. It's like akhlaq. It's how you relate, how conscious you are as a human being, insan, at a higher level. You get what I mean? And you're living at that particular higher level in the world. Like, how conscious are you when you eat food? Are you following the Quranic teaching, halal and tayyib? You get what I mean? So a lot of people say, no, we follow the Quran. They think they believe in Allah, the Quran says, but they don't believe in Allah. They say they believe in Allah in the last day, but they don't, the Quran says. In their hearts is a disease and Allah leaves them to stray. You see? They say they're following the Sunnah, but really, is that really following the Sunnah? You get what I mean? So, like that, they say these things. People say these things, that this is Amal. You get what I mean? But in the meantime, anybody who is aware can realize that this is not, they say they follow the Quran. Are they really following? They say they believe in the Quran. When the Quran says halal and tayyib, they say only halal. We're not too much interested in tayyib. You know what I mean? So, you can see what I'm talking about. When guidance comes to people, they actually have they start focusing on a relationship of submission with Allah. And they start behaving in a way of conduct and carrying themselves and how they relate in the world. They have a higher consciousness way of relating to their bodies, themselves, other people. They conduct themselves at a higher level. When guidance comes to people, this is not something I'm asking you to believe that is scientific. It's obvious. Don't you think that when somebody is guided, they will be secure, a believer, if they really believe in Allah, they're really aware of Allah and have a relationship with Allah and they trust in Allah and they thank in Allah, they would be much more faithful, less fearful, they'll be much more secure. And guidance comes to people, you can see it how they relate and respond and speak. They'll actually be like the Prophet who was guided. You get what I mean? And they'll actually relate to their bodies and eating and life and all that in a way that is, you can see that there is some thought and you can see that there's higher quality feeling, higher quality living. This is why the Quran says the Muslims, real ones, not the one Islamis, the real Muslims are outstanding and are a light and guidance to humanity. You get what I mean? Because guidance has reached them. All right? So, what am I going on about, Why am I talking about that? Because fasting is in support of that. You get what I mean? Fasting is not something in its own. Like, forget about Tawheed, just fast. You know what I mean? No. Fasting for the purpose of taqwa. That's what it's all about. Taqwa is based in Tawheed. It's based in being a believer. So I told you last week that if somebody who has real belief in Allah, who's aware and submitted, and somebody who is really conducting themselves in life, following the Quranic teaching of halal and tayyib, that means they would be spiritually healthy, they would be actually following the sunnah, they'll be like the Prophet, because they bring into Allah a purified heart. You get what I mean? They'll be spiritually healthy, they'll be psychologically and emotionally healthy, and they will live in a way physically healthy. Now, if you are that person, fasting will support you in actually attaining taqwa. And that's what I said I'm going to speak about this month. And I've been speaking about that for those people who have iman in their hearts, for those people who are bringing to Allah a purified heart, for those people who are looking to guidance of how to conduct themselves as a higher level human being in the world, guided human being, and who are living with spiritual health, psychological, emotional health, and spiritual health, psychological, emotional health, and physical health, fasting is what is going to be a very powerful spiritual practice and discipline. Again, I can tell you because I love to fast. I fast actually more outside Ramadan than including Ramadan. So it's some people just keep 30 fasts in the month of Ramadan or 28, 29, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I love fasting because it supports me in attaining taqwa. Get what I mean? So how does it do that? If you are a healthy person, if you have iman, you want to establish a relationship with Allah, if you are a person who is bringing to Allah a purified heart, if you are a person who is into living in a healthy way and you're supporting a healthy body, then you can really fast. And what that means is you eat healthily from sundown to sunup. So you don't deprive yourself, but nor do you indulge. And then from sunup, dawn to dusk, there is a period of engaging the world where you are focused on spiritual attaining of taqwa. You get what I mean? That I'm fasting today, that I may attain taqwa. Interestingly enough, those du'as to fast and all that, you must do research and see where they came from. Who said you must read this, and you must read that at the start of the fast, and you must read this at the end of the fast. You must do research. I've done research into these matters. Go do the research. Who came up with those niyats? You think the Prophet. But go and do your research and see, So the thing is, you're fasting for the purpose of attaining taqwa. The Quran says, I am fasting for the purpose of attaining taqwa. That is my niyat. Fasting Allah, as you say, that I can attain taqwa in the Quran. Get what I mean? And then what happens is you go through the day with that intention. And that intention will guide you to actually separate yourself from that what we would call fallen, animalistic, carnal self. You get what I mean? Everybody, including me, to some degree or another, has got insecurity. Everybody, including me, to some degree, is got, these kind of thoughts in our head and this kind of attachment to the world and this neediness and controlled by the world, trying to control the world. Everybody is to some degree or another ignorant. I mean, have you ever seen anybody who is not to some degree or another destructive, or some degree to another, have you ever seen, is everybody peaceful and calm and secure and, look and see, even people who have been the most religious that I've known have been the most violent sometimes. That's not Islam. People keep their fast, but they're aggressive. And destructive. And I told you, before the fast, they have a feast in the morning. Oh, we're fasting. Let's have our feast. And there's a lot of junk food there too. It's not healthy. And then when you break your fast, there's a lot of junk food there. It's not healthy there. This is not helping you. You understand? If you want to fast to attain taqwa. If you're just fasting like Islami because you're just supposed to, like everybody else is starving themselves, then there's no problem. Like if you just want to read the Quran without its guidance, then there's no problem. That's your choice. If you just want to say, I believe in Allah, but you don't actually want to be a believer, then there's no problem. If any of you really want to fast, I'm talking about for the purpose of attaining taqwa, then this is important. If you want to be part of the Islamism that is not real Islam in the world, then there's no problem. You carry on in your ways. But if attaining taqwa is important to you, as Allah guides us in the Quran, which is important to me, then you don't want to poison your body. You're doing more harm by poisoning your body. If your body doesn't feel good, if it's not cleansed, you can't really go to the spiritual vibes. You can't get to love, compassion and all. If your body is holding you down. You get what I mean? People who poison their bodies with, and I did this for 10 years, shukr to Allah, it's about 23 years or so I stopped, cigarette smoking and other things and all that sort of thing. Those people who are poisoning their bodies with chemicals and bad food and all that sort of thing, you're not really going to be fasting to attain taqwa. You get what I mean? You're going to be just starving yourself to say, oh, well, I kept my fast. And that's where it seems like most people are and they want to be. But if you really want to fast to attain taqwa, your body has got to feel lighter. You get what I mean? You can't make it heavy with contaminants and poisons and bad food, and you can't really get to the feeling space because there's a feeling in your heart, there's a disease. And, you can have the fast help you purify that disease. All of us have that disease. Is there anybody that the Quran says, no, only these people must purify their heart? The Quran says everybody is to bring to Allah a purified heart. Are you getting what I'm saying? Everybody. Heart is impure until you bring to Allah pure. That is your purpose. If you are interested in why you are here and living in this world and going to the next in the hereafter and having Allah's good in this world and Allah's good, then this is important for those people. Remember, there are many people who say, and the Quran tells us, we believe in Allah and the last day. We believe in Allah and the hereafter. But they don't believe. You might be one of those people who say you believe in Allah and the last day. You say you believe in Allah and the hereafter. But you don't, because the way you live your life, you're not really interested in bringing to Allah a purified heart. You're not saying my heart is impure. To some degree, I'm fasting that I may attain taqwa. If you begin to acknowledge that I am under the influence of satanic promptings, I'm living unconsciously, I'm living subconsciously, I'm living controlled by the body, I'm living controlled by this world. You get what I mean? I claim refuge in Allah from Satan the accursed. This is the other condition. If you really want to fast, and if you really want to fast for taqwa, you've got to understand, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. That I am a claimer of the refuge that is Allah, from the whisperings and promptings of Satan. Get what I mean? That I know that there's whisperings and promptings. I know in me that there's negative ways. I know in me there are ways of operating unconsciously, subconsciously, destructively. I'm not connected fully with Allah, or some of us not connected at all with Allah. I'm not living in the world with being in the true emulation of the Prophet in terms of his being qualities, his characteristics, not having a beard, but his being. I know I am not really living as an honorable human being, respecting my body, eating and all that. So I know I'm under the influence of Satan. Satan's whispering to me and I'm going for it. And that's where all human beings are. Don't feel bad. That's why the guidance is here. The guidance is here that you may acknowledge that in you, and that you may be interested in going beyond that version of you, the insecure, needy version of you, the powerless, the ignorant, the arrogant, the superstitious, the entitled, the lost version of you. All of us are to some degree. Allah is the guide. The Quran is guiding us. And fasting becomes that way that we can disidentify with that fallen self, that ego self, that carnal self, that lower nafs. That is, that I'm this body and this is the world, that's all there is. When you begin to healthily fast, you allow the body to go through a healthy discomfort. It's not an unhealthy discomfort. When you're sick or you're on a journey, Allah says He doesn't want ease for you. Don't fast. Pay the fidya, whatever it is. There is for you to do that. You get what I mean? So for those who are healthy and really want to fast, and fasting for the purpose of taqwa, and aware and acknowledging that I want to attain taqwa. You get what I mean? I want to go beyond being in darkness and lost and ignorant and superstitious and arrogant. I want to go beyond who I've been and how I've lived and what I've experienced. I've been whispered to, there are whisperings, I'm claiming that refuge, and I'm fasting for the purpose of getting closer to Allah, experiencing Allah consciousness, becoming less controlled by the world, and being more connected with my security with Allah. And this is where, when you're fasting at one level, you are connecting to the higher you. Not the carnal you, not the physical you, not the animal you. You get what I mean? You're connecting to a feeling being within you. Like when you're being loving, or you're being kind, or you're being compassionate. These are the attributes of Allah. When you're being peaceful and you're being patient, that is a higher version of you. That's not your human animal you. You get what I mean? The human animal part of you is controlled by instinct and impulse, and that says, I want that food, I need it. It's greedy, it's lustful. That lower animal in you, actually, it wants, that lower animal in you, it wants gratification. It needs gratification. And so when you are fasting as a healthy person, and you have your body cleansed, and you are going through the fast, and you are having this healthy discomfort of saying no, abstaining from the physical world, you experience a healthy discomfort, a healthy deprivation in a sense. It's abstention. And what then happens is that you are able to connect that even though I'm in discomfort, or maybe unhappy about not having food, I can still feel okay. I am aware of Allah, and I can handle discomfort. It teaches you patience. It teaches you, voluntarily you're not going to be eating now, but later on you'll be eating. It's teaching you discipline, that that impulse control in you, that gratification. I didn't get what I want, so I'm angry now. You know what I mean? You learn patience, and you learn to go inward. You understand, okay, I'm getting some feedback from my body. My body is feeling hungry. There's an urge in me to fulfill that hunger, but I'm choosing not to. You learn personal power, the power of choice, that instead of saying, oh, I'm hungry now, so let me eat, stimulus response, you actually then, what? Choose. You learn choose. So my time is up for today. We will continue, inshallah, next week. All praise, glory, and thanks is due to Allah Almighty's choicest blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.